So, where was I? Oh yeah, right, magical things. But not only that, I will also finally tell you how this came to be, whatever that really is. I still don't know. But my cluelessness doesn't end there, but it pretty much starts right here. As this is me still trying to figure out how this whole magical thing works, with the circles in my inventory and the bad guys on the map, which brings me back to a question: are these guys really the bad guys, or is it us, or, you know, well, whatever makes the dopamine points come in. It's somewhat out of question that I would possibly do worse things for those, but I already digress. As primarily, I ran out of those circles in my inventory, which kinda makes me being stuck at hitting the guy with the stick again, which we have established might not be the whole idea of how that magic skill really works. I kinda like that too though. Anyways, there wasn't really much else to do than go back and stock up. But this time around I actually didn't allow my beginner hubris to get the better of me, and I actually bought things in a store, like you give money and get stuff. Incredible concept. Not even a single person had to be murdered for this. Incredible stuff. And being quite unaware of how much I really need, I just got myself a bunch. Being freshly stocked up on feather and droplet runes, I guess. And after precise calculations, I came to the conclusion that there really is only one thing to do. And we're going to an old familiar place, because there is a certain Cape Empire still going strong actually. And that's also the point where I realized that I didn't bring Sun with Face runes with me, which is kind of speaking for my intersection even more, because the closest thing is the rune shop. How convenient. Almost like it was meant to be. Anyways, 300 suns later, finally some magical murder. How wonderful. Okay, that one doesn't really work. I mean, we're not casting with a wand, we're pretty much casting with our hands, really. Yeah, well, I tried. On the plus side, though, I am flying through these levels, as this is still the first guy I'm trying to beat up. So not only do I get a whole magic level for one guy, I also get a cape, of course. A dream come true, I guess. I know I said it before, but I'm really liking this skill already. It really is captivating. And that one doesn't work either, because technically we don't have a cap, we have a hat. Yeah, it's not getting better, is it? But then in stark contrast, the gameplay actually is, because just another guy later, level up. This definitely is a different pace than the game has shown me so far. Also, the variety that comes with it in the forms of the spellbook definitely beats the early levels of every other skill yet. And even better yet, switching to the Earth Strike now that we got it, netting me an instant 6 damage attack. I mean, what is not to like? I might be wrong here, but I'm almost sure that I didn't even hit for a 6 yet with my range skill. My new assumption right now is the fact that we are not wearing armor, and this is kind of the glass cannon of Runescape, but so far I'm all for that, to be honest. And on top of that, those aren't random hits, they just keep happening. It truly is magical. Oh yeah, and Adventurer John, by the way. Always a pleasant surprise to read about that guy, to be honest. But as it so happens to happen, I eventually realized one flaw with this really quickly. You do run out of runes rather rapidly, actually. And approaching this from the shopkeeper's point of view, seeing this train of maniacs run in and out every few minutes just to buy a bunch of your products must be quite the day. But we do what we must, and freshly restocked, we can now swap to the fire spell, which first attempt hits for a whopping 8 already, and pretty much just 2 shots the guy. Have I mentioned that I really like this skill so far? But be that as it may, the carnage continues until I hit this very fateful moment in time. I'm level 17, so far so good, but I can now cast Wind Bolt. In itself, merely just another spell, most likely a little bit better, but you know, it's a new toy and I really want to try it out. So far nothing too out of the ordinary. Only issue, I need those fancy smiley runes that I don't have yet. So naturally the maniacs go for another rune run. Betty definitely having the most profitable day ever. And just as planned, I buy myself, oh yeah, Chaos runes, I definitely know the name. And as you know, smart me, I'm having a plan. Thinking ahead, I am just buying a bunch more, which sure gives me a bunch of runes, but also completely eradicates my gold amount, as I wasn't even remotely close to being able to buy 10 of those. Merely 2 packs already pretty much bankrupted me. There's definitely a lesson, I mean, there's many lessons in here, but first and foremost, maybe the game also teaches you that you should maybe have a financial plan in a video game. I think I will end up having it more together in-game than in actual life. This is, I don't know what this is. Worrying at best. But maybe more importantly might be, if you buy things, you might check the price tag. Also maybe before you buy things. But that's just a little, let's call it editorial note by me personally. Don't take anything I say too serious. After all, it comes from the guy that just bankrupted himself by just randomly buying things. Oh well, let's just vent on poor highway guys. And also given the fact that I just spent pretty much almost my last money to get the also required feathery runes, we might have to change plans reasonably soon. I can really sense a slight pattern when it comes to me and plans. Worrying trend really. Well, let's just go to school then, apparently. I mean, it has been a hot minute for myself to go to this place, but I regardless very much appreciate the personally adjusted skill level required for these tasks right here. I would have loved that back in the days actually. Nonetheless, I do catch up in a video game at least, which now allows me as a reward, I guess, to choose from one of the 4 doors to leave this place. I don't know if me choosing this one changes anything or if that was just for fun, I guess. But I'm back to murdering highway guys, that is. I mean, what else? But all of these shenanigans also have a good side to it, or an even better side, I think. I finally have an answer to this old problem here, as I now have seen everything possible and there really only is one reasonable decision here. And there's actually one even better. That schoolbook move finishes the last Adventurer John path, actually. I think you couldn't have planned that any better. Then again, I think you could have, but I'll take it. And definitely one of the bigger and almost somewhat accidental milestones in my path, but that's okay and kind of speaks for the whole journey so far, to be honest. So I wouldn't have it any other way, as after all, that is also literally how I even ended up in this game, so it all ends well. But then again, as per usual, talking about an end here is just straight up wrong. And even within this story, we haven't even seen certain parts I promised earlier. So I better get to it. I quickly clear out this intersection of potential cape owners, casually making another level happen, of course. And I can now use low-level alchemy, which, oh boy, that's gonna be a fun one too. But for now, let me explain to you how it might happen that there suddenly is a bunch of clowns here. And it's reasonably simple actually, as I just talked about it. It pretty much starts like this whole thing and pretty much everything within. This time I wasn't doing something without thinking, I was saying something without thinking. Because you see, if you look very closely, you can maybe guess that I might be streaming this whole idea here. But you really have to look closely. Which is a topic of lively debate usually, not only in the YouTube comments. And within all of this, I for some reason thought I would also answer to this. And I might have said something along the lines of surprisingly gameplay with you know, a bunch of clowns in game and a lot more clowns and text next to me is definitely surprisingly enjoyable and would have thought. And I also would not have thought that pretty thoughtless words of me that I just said, you know. I also want to say that clowns is a good thing in this case. But these words had a certain effect, let's say. As of course, there is a clown outfit in the game. And some people seem to have been oddly proud to have that or show it off or just happy. I don't know. What I do know though is that shortly after I was somewhat alone here, and even more shortly after, the clowns were back. And obviously, literally. And just like that, I was part of Runescape first ever, I'm assuming, a CLOWNCON, I guess. So naturally, first thing, I went back to Betty to further prove that this will definitely be one of the days of her life. And I further cement my position as a memorable customer when it comes to buying runes here, as not only do I show up for the 15th time with a bunch of people, this time, well, clowns. Much more important was a tiny little event that happened a little later, because just like any good convention, of course, there was a cosplay competition. Apparently. I also assume the first ever. Rules are very simple really. You join this police lineup version of clowns with your hopefully best costume. And after carefully evaluating every single one, your fate is in the hand of, well, the stream pretty much, as the stream was then voting on the winner. And I think I don't have to talk about why there is so many benefits to this rather than me making the decision. But let's check out the contestants, I guess. I mean, one thing is very obvious. Pretty much, well, almost everyone looks kind of the same, but I'm assuming that is simply a limitation from the game. So God-given, I guess, which would make the developers of this game gods. I don't know if that is true. I mean, to a certain degree, they created something, but I also heavily digress. So let's rather move on to the second contestant, which is the most obvious outlier. Unsure what to say about this one, but given this is CLOWNCON, I think this is perfectly on the money actually. As for everyone else, the only difference really is the things they're holding or the movements they're making. Here we have a guy holding, I guess, a bird cage, or I rather hope it is. A clown with sword and, well, Batsib's original cape, I'm sure. Another reason I shouldn't do the judging on this one. And while speaking my mind, I always wonder, what are people thinking that just randomly come by these things? Anyways, clown with balloons. Pretty reasonably straightforward, I guess. Up next, chicken with lantern and party cape. Also thematically beautifully done. Over here, the propeller hat touch. I'm really liking that choice. Also, speaking of possibly random people that just happen to come by, hard to tell, but this guy does look confused, I'm sure. Anyways, clown doing clown stuff with knife in hand. Very horror movie-like. And last but not least, of course, a lot of gnome stuff that looks surprisingly tasty, more than anything really. And my personal favorite, the pan hat. Beautiful. And yeah, just like that, we've seen pretty much everything there is to see. I still wonder how I ended up in this scenario ever. Also, no idea if any of these things were anything special really. But that's okay, because it's not me voting. We have covered that before. And what followed then was a to-be-expected chaos in combination with severe incompetence on my end, which is slightly hard to visualize, but all in all, we made two groups and those two guys are the finale now, doing a little 1v1. This all happened due to technical limitations, definitely not personal ones. But be that as it may, this whole event climaxes in yet another actually really hard to visualize vote that happened. The only way I could show you really is because, well, that one guy leaves, pretty much indicating, yeah, that guy won. I know, climax of utmost proportions right here. But to be fair, a scuffed event, it just fits perfectly to this whole story. Can't even be mad about it. But more importantly, it wouldn't be Bathsib's CLOWNCON if there wasn't a prize, of course. And also maybe a little bit of a motivation for next year's event. Not only does one get a incredibly rare, massively valuable Bathsib's cape, no, there's also prize money. You actually do get my last 5 coins because I spent everything else on runes. And with that, the only thing left is to congratulate Sonophobia to be the first ever CLOWNCON winner. Well deserved, I'm almost sure. But just as important, everyone else who actually accidentally made this happen. Still having mixed feelings, but much appreciated for that, of course. All of this just once and again and over, proving that of all the gaming communities, this one is definitely one of them. And with those philosophical words of wisdom, I'll send you off with this beautiful group picture actually. Thank you, Sarah. I now also know what you guys see all the time. Maybe by the time next CLOWNCON comes around, my game looks like this too. One can only hope. But for now, I might first have to financially recover from this episode, so we'll see.